Chapter 171 Yuan Stone Mine, Earth Cave Human. After the test, Chu Mo was in a happy mood. Then it was back to the base. First, he looked at Qin Shiwei and strolled around the base with her, and then he made a trip to the Tianji Pavilion and made his rounds. Noteworthy. Just half a month ago, the three kings and the other great bases honored ones had all left one after another. And the cultivation resources searched from clearing the 10,000 beasts sect were distributed. Chu Mo also received his share, a total of about 8 billion yuan stones worth of resources. Not a lot. But it was still an unexpected pleasure, so Chu Mo took it. Beyond that, there were also 3 bronze-level martial arts and 2 silver-level martial arts. After looking them over, Chu Mo placed them in the Tianji Pavilion's martial arsenal as rewards, allowing the martial artists under his command to redeem them with points. After doing this, Chu Mo returned to the secret realm and continued to start cultivating 20 times the speed of yuan qi gathering, coupled with the assistance of using many heavenly materials and treasures, as well as the blood of a rank 6 ferocious beast. This allowed Chu Mo's strength to grow by leaps and bounds. Except for Tremor, of course. Qin Shiwei's strength was also rising rapidly. Before the annihilation of the 10,000 Beasts sect, Qin Shiwei had already reached the mid-Zhongshe realm, and during this period of time, because of the various cultivation resources provided by Chu Mo, her cultivation had even been raised to the late Zhongshe stage, and she was even not far from the peak Zhongshe realm. According to Chu Mo's prediction, in as little as 3 months or as much as half a year, she would be able to start impacting the realm of the 4 directions in general. In the meantime, disciple Li Youwei's strength was also improving by leaps and bounds. The glazed jade bone casting flawless Dao foundation, coupled with the awakening of the soul of the heavenly phoenix, making Li Youwei's talent can be described as 1 in 100 million, plus there are also the resources provided by Chu Mo, so that her cultivation progress is even more extremely rapid. He stepped into the Zhongshe realm on the 3rd day after casting the foundation of the Dao. Then again, in the month when she was just promoted, she relied on the effects of the high-speed growth period of strength and her unrivaled talent, so much so that she actually quickly skipped over the early stage of the Sovereign Master, thus stepping into the mid-stage of the Sovereign Master realm. By now, his strength was steadily progressing towards the late Sect Master stage. Everything is moving in a good direction. Time flows. The sun goes down in the west and the moon rabbit rises in the east. In the blink of an eye, another 2 months had passed. During these 2 months, Chu Mo had been cultivating in the secret realm, only awakening when he ran out of yuan stones and then re-adding some yuan stones into it, once again falling into seclusion, and on this day, he had to come out of seclusion. It was because he had run out of yuan stones. Although Chu Mo's worth was more than $10 million, more than half of it was heavenly materials that could not be used at all. As for the remaining yuan stones, during the period of seclusion, because he had been absorbing yuan qi frantically, so much so that during the previous 20 days of seclusion, plus these 2 months, totaling no more than 3 months of seclusion and cultivation, along with the 100 million medium-grade yuan stones gifted by the Mingguan king, Chu Mo had already consumed a total of more than 40 billion lower-grade yuan stones. Right now, he couldn't even find a single yuan stone in his carry-on space. This kind of consumption is absolutely horrifying. But in Chu Mo's opinion, it was well worth it. These 2 months of closed-door cultivation, coupled with the fact that there's still rank 6 ferocious beast essence blood, has allowed me to once again increase my strength by 18,000 elephants. Making my physical body's base strength break through the 100,000 mark, reaching 110,000 elephant power. The realm has also been raised to the late Jin general stage. Less than 40,000 elephant power away from the peak Shin general realm. Amidst the murmuring, a smile appeared on Chu Mo's face, no doubt about it. Progress like that is absolutely surging. As for the last 40,000 elephant power, if he was given enough yuan stones, he would definitely be able to achieve it within half a year, and then smoothly step into the 8 desolate exalted realm. But alas, he had no more yuan stones on him now. There were still tens of billions of heavenly treasures totaling over tens of billions, but most of these treasures were so precious that it would undoubtedly be a loss to exchange them for yuan shi. Besides, there was no power that could take out such a huge amount of yuan stones in a short period of time. If only there was a huge vein of yuan stone. Chummer murmured. Thinking of this, he immediately summoned the treasure-hunting bird out of his storage bag. Dale, can you find specific treasures in your treasure-hunting talent? Chum asked, with some anticipation. No way. Dale shook his head and said, my treasure-hunting talent can only vaguely sense where treasures will appear, but I won't be able to tell exactly what treasures are there. Trummer was a little disappointed. Could it be that he could only take out these treasures and exchange them for yuan shi? Once they were sold, many precious heavenly materials would be difficult to find in the future as well. Master, what treasure are you looking for? At this point, Dale asked, curiously. A vein of metastone. Chummer said casually. So it's a yuan stone mine, I know where there is one. Dale chirped at once. Really? Chumo's eyes lit up and asked excitedly. Of course it's true. Dale stood on Chumo's shoulder and said, that yuan stone vein is huge, much bigger than the one you found back then, Master, and it's not far from where I was born. At that time I saw it with my own eyes. This is really a mountain of doubt and a village in the dark. Hearing Dale's words, Chumo instantly became excited. Then let's go over there now. Chummer said. Yes, Master. Dale immediately agreed. Subsequently, Chumo then left this secret realm before he was guided by Dull in the direction where the mineral vein was located, flying all the way. Half a day later, Chumo arrived on a plane. He looked at the map and realized that this place was relatively close to and the Luoyang base, and when he said close, it was only relatively speaking. In fact, this place is tens of thousands of miles away from Luoyang base. Master, it's right here. The treasure-hunting bird said. Chumo stopped his footsteps and looked in the direction guided by Dale, and saw that the front was very open, and spreading out his spiritual power, he didn't find any fluctuation of yuan qi coming from the ground. If it was any other martial artist, I'm afraid they would simply ignore it. But since Dale was sure, Chumo also directly took out the autumn killing blade and began to bury his head and dig. As soon as the blade went down, it immediately cut out a crater hundreds of meters deep. Chumo then swung his sword again and again, digging down continuously. It was just that as he gradually went deeper and deeper into the ground, he would dig up hard stones and quarries one after another, and thus the difficulty of digging would become higher and higher. Chumo had lost count of how many times he had swung and chopped. Only through his spiritual perception, he learned that he had already gone hundreds of kilometers deeper into the earth, but he still hadn't seen any trace of yuan shi. Cheer up, Master. Dig in soon. Dale stood on Chumo's shoulders and kept cheering. Boom. At that moment, Chumo once again slashed out his sword, and a loud boom suddenly sounded in front of him. Subsequently, he then realized that a gutter tunnel had appeared in front of him. This is. Chumo froze and immediately entered into this underground cave tunnel, finding that on both sides of the tunnel, there were pure white veins of yuan shi everywhere, so densely packed that he couldn't even forget it at a glance. Dug it up, Master is great. Dale bounced around, excited. Chumo also revealed a smile. After digging for such a long time, he had finally dug up yuan shi, and it was not a waste of his hard work. Immediately, he stepped forward, ready to mine the yuan stone. However, right at this time, Chumo's gaze swept around these yuan stone mines, but his brows unconsciously wrinkled. Somehow, Chumo always felt that these yuan stones seemed to have been mined by someone. Walking up to a metastone mine. The yuan stone mine wall in front of him is smooth, and at first glance it is a natural formation, but Chumo felt a faint sharpness. He closed his eyes. A picture then steeped in the mind's eye. A long knife fell and cut down a whole block of yuan stone. The incision was smooth, and even is it hard to believe that someone has already mined it? Such a thought steeply surfaced in Chumo's mind. But then he thought something was impossible. This is over 100 kilometers underground, how could anyone possibly find it? Besides, it was impossible that there would still be so many Yuan stone mines left behind if they were really taken over by other martial artists. At a cursory glance, there were at least tens of billions of dollars. It was impossible for even a king to let go of tens of billions of dollars of stones. Just as this doubt surfaced in Chumo's mind. In the meantime, he seemed to have sensed something, and his expression changed. Then he immediately put Dull into the spirit beast pouch, while he himself directly cast his dark attribute talent and hid. A few moments later, from another part of the underground cave, 3 figures came from afar. However, they were 3 or 4 meters tall, and their bodies were quite similar to human-looking beings. Seeing this scene, Chumo's pupils instantly widened. In the underground cave, there are actually living beings? It was almost a little hard for him to believe his eyes. To know. That's more than 100 kilometers underground from the surface. More importantly, they also look very similar to humans. The only difference was that they were much taller and had much paler skin than normal humans. Other than that, they were almost identical. Just as Chumo was shocked by it. These 3 beings were walking and conversing at the same time, seemingly saying something, only Chumo couldn't understand their language. Soon, they had arrived near Chumo's neighborhood. And just then, one of the beings suddenly sensed something and burst into a rage, showing his teeth at the place where Chumo was staying, while the other 2 beings also gazed their gazes over. Next moment, the 3 of them made a direct move and pounced towards Chumo. Discovered? Chummer froze. This was the first time he had been discovered by an outsider since he had cast his dark attribute talent. The heart was not a little surprised. But at this moment, the 3 had already made their move. Chumo also had no time to hesitate, and directly drew out the autumn-killing blade. His body's chi and blood boiled, his yuan power bulged like the sea, and his majestic power surged out, chopping towards the 3 tall beings. Chapter 172 Earth Cave Caveman, Fusion Pupil Art Talent. The aura emanating from them was a bit different from ordinary martial artists, but Chumo could still recognize that it was probably somewhat similar to the cultivation of the Sifeng town generals. And such a realm was almost as bad as a mole cricket to today's Chumoid wasn't even a match for him. It is to this moment. When Chumo chopped out his sword, a living being didn't even have the slightest bit of resistance, and was directly chopped in the head, and instantly his body and head were separated, and he fell to the ground without a sound. And when the other 2 saw it, they immediately showed a look of panic. It seemed to be completely unexpected that Chumo's strength was so strong. After killing this person, Chumo didn't stop, and directly flashed his body, and once again came in front of the second living being, and with another drop, the latter was instantly killed. Wow! The last living being, the one who had seen through Chumo's stealth, at this moment, seeing Chumo decapitate his 2 companions in a row, his mouth let out a series of strange languages, and then he even turned his head and tried to escape. How could Chumo let him escape? The shadowless phantom steps were cast out, catching up in an instant. The sword came out like a pike, as if it was a thunderbolt from a clear sky, falling directly towards his head. Seeing that this being was going to die under Chumo's blade, who knew that a dazzling white light was suddenly refracted in his eyes, and immediately, he smashed the weapon in his hand towards his long blade at an extremely unimaginable angle. Clang! The moment the weapons met, Chumo steeply felt that the blade chi he had cut out seemed to have been invisibly weakened by a few points. But despite this, facing a martial artist who was only at the level of a Jin general, it still directly crushed down, first cutting off his blades, and then the remaining momentum of the long blade landed on his neck. Pfft! Accompanied by the sound of a long knife entering the flesh, a head flew up, bringing up a string of blood like a stream. At this point, the spirits of the 3 underground caves had already been killed by Chumo. However, Chumo did not breathe a sigh of relief, but instead, there was a look of contemplation on his face. What is the identity of these beings, exactly? And why do they live underground? One question after another appeared in Chumo's mind, causing his thoughts to turn over. Just. When we return to the Jinling Grand Base, ask the Mo clan's old ancestor, perhaps he should know. Chumo thought darkly. Since he couldn't think clearly, Chu Mo didn't agonize over it. Gathering these thoughts together, his gaze then fell on the last being he had cut down. When this being was fighting Chu Mo, he was able to see his brokenness in general, and his weapon was able to strike at the weak point of Chu Mo's long blade, causing his blade aura to be weakened by a few points in an invisible manner. More to the point, this person was also able to see through Chu Mo's hiding place. One must know that ever since Chu Mo obtained the dark attribute talent, hiding behind the shadows, even a king would not be able to detect it, but this being was only comparable to the realm of the four directions Shin generals, but he was able to see him, which really made Chu Mo a little puzzled. And then associate it with the white light that shot out from this person's eyes. For a while it did give Chu Mo a guess in his heart. Murphy. He has a very peculiar pupil technique that allows him to see breakthroughs? Chummer murmured softly. Read this. Chumo's heart was immediately moved. If that's the case, it can't be spared. Capture it and see. It just so happened that the gathering technique had already been refreshed, so Chumo concentrated and fixed his gaze on the body. Target, Grotto Caveman. Capturable. Is collection taking place? So they're Grotto Cavemen. Chummer murmured. Then, without further hesitation, he directly recited in his mind, gather. Next moment he saw a palm generated by a ball of golden light suddenly emerge from Chumo's hand and grabbed towards the corpse of the Earth Cave caveman. When he returned again, in his golden hands, there was already an additional pair of beads that appeared as if they were eyes in appearance, emitting a mysterious and unpredictable aura. Capture successful. Medium pupil talent acquired. May I ask if it's fused? Sure enough, it's some kind of pupil talent. A flash of surprise appeared on Chumo's face. The pupil talent, an extremely rare talent. It's well known. If a martial artist wants to cultivate, they must have a cultivation physique or a cultivation talent. Cultivation physique could only allow a martial artist to have the qualification to cultivate, while cultivation talent, in addition to allowing a martial artist to have the qualification to cultivate, could also allow a martial artist to have an affinity for a certain attribute talent under the same realm. A martial artist who possessed talent was definitely more powerful than a martial artist who only possessed a cultivation physique. It was only because of the scarcity of talent, even if it was even the most common 5 elemental talent, the percentage of births was much rarer than the physique. In the Jinling Grand Base, the ratio of ordinary martial artists to gifted martial artists was roughly 100 to 1. That is to say, out of 100 martial artists, only one at most possessed the talent. This shows the rarity of talent. In addition to the 5 elemental talents, there are also mutations and special talents. Things such as light, darkness, wind, thunder, and ice, as well as blade attribute talents and sword attribute talents, all of which were caused by specific environments. For example, if you grew up living in an icy place, there is a certain chance that you will have the ice attribute. When one grows up practicing sword and knife skills regularly, or even having powerful swordsmen and swordswomen right next to them, there is a certain possibility that they will be born. Compared to the 5 basic attributes, the birth of these talents cannot be predicted and there is no pattern. Therefore, it is very rare. But rare is rare, and with a large enough population base, there is some possibility that it will eventually occur. And in comparison, talents such as pupil talent were even rarer. Ever since Chu Mo had cultivated, he had never seen a martial artist with a similar talent. Fusion. Chumo murmured without hesitation. In the next moment, this pair of illusory eyes drifted straight towards Chu Mo's eyes. There was no pain as expected. Chu Mo only felt that his eyes were a little itchy, and there was also a faint coolness, as if he had dropped eye drops, sending him a sense of relaxation. A few moments later, all of these feelings slowly dissipated. Immediately, Chu Mo felt the information on pupil talent appear in his mind. Only after carefully digesting away this information did Chumo learn that this was actually a kind of delusion-breaking pupil art, capable of seeing through the vast majority of the world's brokenness and concealment. Try to see how it works. Chumo opened his eyes and then operated his pupil art talent. In an instant, he felt a brilliant white light shine from his eyes, and the world in front of him became different. The internal structure of a variety of objects appeared right in front of Chumo. With this delusion-breaking avatar, if you encounter a formation in the future, you will be able to break it very easily instead of needing to use brute force. More to the point, when you encounter an enemy again, you will be able to directly attack the opponent's weak points, thus invisibly weakening the other's power. What an incredible talent! Chumo secretly marveled in his heart, feeling very happy that he was able to obtain such a talent. Though the pupil talent did not lead to an intuitive increase in his strength. But being able to see the weakening of the other party and weakening the strength of others, this kind of auxiliary means, in Chumo's opinion, was more useful than directly increasing his strength. Thinking so, Chumo withdrew his pupil talent and collected some more on this corpse, collecting another medium cultivation physique, before realizing that he could no longer collect any more. Casually absorbing the medium cultivation physique, Chumo opened his personal information. Target, Chumhum. Physique, Transcendent Level Indestructible Thunder Body, Transcendent Level Supreme Blade Body. Talents, Morning Star Level Sword Cultivation Talent, Morning Star Level Wind Attribute Talent, Transcendent Level Fire Attribute Talent, Transcendent Level Earth Attribute Talent, Transcendent Level Metallic Talent, Transcendent Level Wood Attribute Talent, Higher Spatial Talent, Higher Water Attribute Talent, Higher Darkness Attribute Talent, Medium Pupil Talent. After taking a look, Chumo nodded with satisfaction. Throwing out a ball of fire, he incinerated the 3 bodies. Spin. Chumo then began to excavate the Yuan stone mine up. Although the appearance of the Earth Cave caveman had caused some doubts in Chumo's heart, but he had not forgotten what his intentions were in coming here this time. Boredom digging. The long knife continued to fall, each time slicing off a large chunk of Yuan stone ore, which was then put into Chumo's carry-on space. There are a lot of metate mines here. Soon, Chumo had already dug down tens of billions of dollars worth of Yuan stones, and in the vein, there were still Yuan stones that could not be seen at a glance. As for within Chumo's carry-on space, it had only just been occupied in a small corner. Ever since Chumo's spatial talent had reached a high level, his carry-on space had been expanded by quite a bit, plus as Chumo's strength continued to grow, the amount of space he could open up was also expanding. To this day, even if $100 billion of stones were packed in, it would definitely be more than enough. Just like that, Chumo excavated while following the tunnel. Without realizing it, he had dug up close to hundreds of billions of lower-grade Yuan stones, and the space within his carry-on space had been filled up by half. At that moment, Trummer turned a corner immediately. He noticed a steep surge in the concentration of Yuan Qi filling the Yuan stone in the tunnel ahead. This is middle-grade Yuan stone? A look of delight appeared in Chumo's eyes. A cursory glance revealed that there were at least tens of millions of medium-grade Yuan stones in this place, which represented tens of billions of lower-grade Yuan stones worth. No hesitation. Immediately, he raised his fall-killing knife and hummed and dug. It didn't take long for these medium-grade Yuan stones to be swept away by Chumo. Great Hall. Trummer was all smiles. At this time, looking around again, he found that most of the surrounding veins had already been collected by him, leaving only some scattered yuanshi, which was troublesome to mine and took a long time, so Chumo couldn't look at it. Estimating that the Yuan stones mined were already enough, Chumo planned to leave this place and look at the tunnels elsewhere. But it was at this time Dull, who had been standing on Chumo's shoulder, but suddenly opened his mouth and said, Master, keep digging. I feel a strong fluctuation of Yuan Qi. Chapter 173, Superior Grade Yuan Stone, Fire Tree Silver Flower. At those words, Chumo's eyes stared. Since Dale said that there were Yuan Qi fluctuations ahead, it meant that there must be treasures. Thinking so, Without the slightest hesitation, Chu Mo directly swung his sword and continued to dig towards the front. The stones in front of him, these were dark in color and very hard. Even if a Zhongshan martial artist struck with all his might, it would be very difficult to split them apart, but under Chu Mo's knife, it was like tofu and was easily cut. Soon, Chu Mo had then carved out a tunnel of several miles. By this point, even without Dale's reminder, Chu Mo himself could feel a very dense yuan qi fluctuation faintly coming from him. Chu Mo's spirit was lifted and he continued to dig hard forward. Boom. Right after, Chu Mo dropped his long blade once again and sliced the stone in front of him. Only a roar could be heard. Immediately, he realized that his eyes had opened up. As far as the eye could see, there was a brilliant bright light. The yuan qi, that was so dense that it was as if it was substantial, came over him like a tsunami, following his pores and drilling madly into his body. One breath, and all the qi and blood in the body became wildly active with it. It's like a volcanic eruption. What a dense yuan qi! Chu Mo's face revealed a look of amazement. When he raised his eyes and looked around, he saw that this was a mining cave, and the surrounding stone walls were full of sparkling yuan stones. But what was different from the medium-grade yuan stones was that the appearance of these yuan stones was more similar to a certain kind of crystal, and the yuan qi contained within them was much more intense, with each piece exceeding the yuan qi content of the medium-grade yuan stones by hundreds of times. This. Could it be a top-grade yuan stone? Chu Mo seemed to have thought of something, and a flash of shock appeared in his eyes. Top-quality yuan sure. That is the most precious yuan stone. Only in the large yuan stone veins have a chance to be bred, which contains the content of yuan qi, is 100 times that of the middle-grade yuan stone, is even more than 10,000 times that of the lower-grade yuan stone, able to let the king realm martial artist can hold in the hands of the absorption of the cultivation. Because of this, every top-grade yuan stone was extremely rare, and it was impossible for an ordinary martial artist to possess one. It only circulated among king realm martial artists. Chu Mo had never expected that this yuan stone vein would have birthed a top-grade yuan stone. After all, even if it was a large vein, there was only a chance that it would be born, and the amount was usually not too much. But here, Chu Mo took a cursory look and realized that although the growth was all rather scattered, there were at least millions of pieces. If it was converted into lower-grade yuan stones, it would be equivalent to at least tens of billions of yuan stones. However, the value of a top-grade yuan stone could not be calculated in this way. Although the total amount of yuan qi contained within it was only 10,000 times more than that of a lower-grade yuan stone, the yuan qi contained in lower-grade yuan stones had a lot of impurities that required the martial artist to spend time to weed out. The yuan qi contained in the top-grade yuan stone was so pure that it could be directly absorbed by the martial artist, eliminating the need to weed out impurities. Therefore, the value is very expensive. If you want to redeem it, a top-grade yuan stone could be exchanged for at least 50,000 lower-grade yuan stones. That's a 50,000-fold difference. But even so, there was still a price for it, and ordinary martial artists could not buy it at all. Get rich. Chu Mo's eyes revealed a touch of joy and said excitedly. He immediately started digging, placing piles of top-grade yuan stones into his carry space. Soon, the place was swept clean, not even a single piece left behind. It is rumored that places that can breed top-grade yuan stones are places where yuan qi converges and is very pure, which means that it is likely to breed heavenly treasures at the level of 10,000 ancient wonders, and maybe there will be some here too. With this thought, Chu Mo searched around. Soon, he then found a spiritual spring in a corner. The water in the spirit spring appeared white, emitting an amazing yuan qi, and if one carefully distinguished it, one could detect that it was actually yuan liquid liquefied after yuan qi was concentrated to the extreme, which was 1 square foot in circumference. No doubt about it, if Chu Mo was able to digest all of it, it would definitely allow his strength to grow substantially. But at this moment, Chu Mo did not place his gaze on this spiritual spring, but instead moved to a plant about half a person tall next to the spiritual spring. The plant was fiery red in color, about the thickness of a small arm, and had no leaves, except for some silver buds at the top, which were as crystalline as coral, and couldn't stop emitting a red light, looking very extraordinary. When Chumo saw this plant, his entire body froze in place violently, and his eyes even revealed a flash of incredulity. Enough time had passed. Only then did 4 words slowly spit out of his mouth. Fire tree. Rumor has it that there is an extremely rare treasure of the ages in this world. And first of all, not to mention the birth conditions would be extremely harsh, even if it is born, want to grow, it is also extremely difficult. Because the fire tree will not grow unless it is in the land of the immortal spirit, the silver flower will not be released unless it is in the spirit of the immortal spirit. This sentence alone shows just how demanding the growth and birth of a fire tree is. Chumo had never expected, no matter what, that he would be able to encounter an incomparably rare fire tree silver flower hundreds of kilometers underground. After the shock, there was ecstasy. This fire tree silver flower in front of him, not only did it grow smoothly, but it had already produced silver flowers. This silver flower, it was said to possess mysterious and unpredictable powers, capable of granting humans some sort of incredible chance. Legend. At the beginning of the great change of heaven and earth, there was a martial artist who happened to come across a fire tree silver flower, and then after eating a silver flower, he was born with an extremely terrifying talent, and then because of the long period of time spent beside the fire tree, it led to his body being tempered, and he was actually transformed to have an extremely strong physique. In just over 10 years, he had risen strongly from an ordinary martial artist and eventually became a powerful existence that traversed the 4 directions. Now that Chumo had encountered it, if he missed it, I'm afraid he would regret it for the rest of his life. Thinking so, Chumo carefully measured up this fire tree silver flower and found that there was a silver-colored bud growing at the top, which was currently at the moment of budding, and according to Chumo's prediction, it should soon be able to completely bloom. No more than a month's time at most. Chumo secretly estimated a month he could afford to wait. In fact, not to mention just a month in the district, even if it was a year, he could still wait. Thinking so, Chumo then sat directly next to the fire tree silver flower, drinking the yuan liquid from the spirit spring next to it to quench his physique while waiting patiently. This kind of yuan liquid, produced by concentrating yuan qi to the extreme, possessed a very large amount of energy. Drinking it allowed Chumo's strength to grow by leaps and bounds. 1 month later. The power of 130,000 elephants. Chumo opened his eyes and felt the growing strength within his body, and a look of satisfaction could not help but appear on his face. In just 1 month, it allowed Chumo to increase his strength by close to 20,000 elephants. It was even more rapid than cultivating in that secret realm in the outside world. From this, it could be seen that this yuan liquid was terrifying. But alas, the Taming month of cultivation had caused him to consume a lot of the yuan liquid in this pool of spiritual spring, and now only a thin layer remained, which could only support him for another 3 days of cultivation at most. Inside, he rushed slightly to feel sorry for himself. Afterward, Chumo then moved his gaze to the fire tree silver flower. The silver flower was seen to be just one last bit away from blooming completely. This made Chumo look forward to it even more. Solely, he wasn't cultivating either, and was directly watching. Half a day later. Boom! Accompanied by a violent fluctuation of yuan qi, this silver flower finally unfolded completely, and at the same time an infinite amount of yuan qi converged over, forming a terrifying funnel that poured into the silver flower. Silver flower. It finally bloomed completely. Seeing this scene, Chumo immediately revealed a look of excitement just as he was thinking this. Within that silver flower, some tiny pollen came out in a steep scattering, and after converging with the yuan qi, it collided violently, and eventually intermingled with each other, forming a silver-colored mist. In the meantime, the silver flower also fell steeply from the fire tree and floated towards the ground. At this moment, under the mist, silver flowers quietly fluttered, like flowers and mist, not flowers and not dance, like a dream, not a dream, not a dream. Gives a surge of awesomeness. Chu Mo was also momentarily mesmerized, but he quickly came back to his senses and hurriedly formed a palm with his yuan qi, wrapping the silver flower and preventing it from falling to the ground. The fire tree grows in the land of the immortal spirits. Can't afford to be half-soiled. Once it fell to the ground and was tainted with mortal breath, the silver flower would instantly wither and lose any effect after it landed in his palm. Chu Mo didn't hesitate in the slightest and directly swallowed it in one gulp. Shasta. This silver flower then transformed into a mysterious and extreme energy that flowed into Chu Mo's body, and then burst out, transforming into a silver point of light that flowed towards Chu Mo's limbs and even his mind. Wherever he passed, Chu Mo only felt a warm breath coming from him. Look within yourself. Chu Mo could find that some of the points of light integrated into his body and combined with his cells and genes, contributing to some sort of metamorphosis, so much so that the many talents in his body began to become active with it. There were also some points of light that flowed into the violet mansion and merged with his yuan shin. Get nourished by the silver points of light. Visible to the naked eye, Chu Mo's yuanshin became more and more solid, and the yuanshin golden wheel behind him was rapidly growing beyond that. Many more points of light drifted towards the deeper recesses of the mind. The brain area was the most mysterious area of human beings. Even a king-level martial artist couldn't figure out what was going on in the brain area. And at this moment, those silver-colored points of light entered the brain area, which made Chu Mo a little worried. He had wanted to extend his spiritual power over and observe it tentatively. However, right at this moment, a mysterious fluctuation suddenly came from his mind, and in the next moment, Chu Mo directly fainted on the ground, and his entire body lost consciousness. In the middle of the brain area that Chu Mo couldn't observe. Those silver-colored points of light began to gradually merge after entering the brain area. At first only very few points of light were fused successfully. But as time went on, more and more silver points of light drifted over and entered the brain area before being slowly digested as the silver points of light continued to float by and be digested. Within Chu Mo's brain domain, there was also some sort of mysterious energy being born and nurtured with it. Chapter 174, Third Stone Tablet of Enlightenment, Earth Cave Caveman's Means. It's hard to know how long it's been. Chu Mo steeply opened his eyes and awoke. I can't believe I'm in a coma? Chu Mo was a bit surprised. He then remembered that the strange fluctuation that had made him pass out, and his heart tightened as he hurriedly checked his information. Target, Chumhum. Physique, Transcendent Level Indestructible Thunder Body, Transcendent Level Supreme Blade Body. Talents, Morning Star Level Sword Cultivation Talent, Morning Star Level Wind Attribute Talent, Transcendent Level Fire Attribute Talent, Transcendent Level Earth Attribute Talent, Transcendent Level Metallic Talent, Transcendent Level Wood Attribute Talent, Higher Spatial Talent, Higher Water Attribute Talent, Higher Darkness Attribute Talent, Medium Pupil Talent. The talent actually didn't change at all? A look of doubt appeared on Chu Mo's face based on rumors. As long as one swallowed the silver flower, it would allow a martial artist to awaken some sort of incredible ability, but Chu Mo realized that he hadn't changed even a little bit in either his physique or his talent. Is it hard to believe that the silver flowers I ate were fake? He couldn't help but frown. Further associating it with the fact that the points of light transformed into by those silver flowers had entered his brain area and as a result caused him to suddenly fall unconscious, it caused Chu Mo's face to reveal a look of gravity. Few. Took a deep breath. Chu Mo allowed himself to relax, and then began to scrutinize his entire body, not letting go of anything suspicious. 1 hour later. Chu Mo scrutinized it and finally found something special. The first was the physique. He felt as if his mind had cleared up a lot and he had become much more deaf. His fleshly body was also even tougher than before, and running the dragon elephant imperishable scripture, he realized that he was actually not far from breaking the third flesh extreme realm. The second is the Yuan Shin in the Violet Mansion. It was also a lot more solid than before. If it was said that before, Chu Mo's Yuan Shen was still somewhat illusory and frivolous, but at this moment it appeared to be much more composed, and the strength of the Yuan Shen had at least been enhanced by more than a factor of 2. And even the Yuan Shen golden wheel became more solid, almost being condensed into substance even beyond the first layer of golden wheels. The shadow of yet another layer of golden wheels faintly appeared. This was the characteristic of a successful cultivation of the first layer of the Great Diffusion Divine Light Mysteries. Did the silver flower just bring me all this help? After observing one side, Chu Mo couldn't help but feel some disappointment in his heart. Although the silver flower had allowed his Great Diffusion Divine Light Mysterious Code to be raised from a mere introduction to the first level of perfection, and the Dragon Elephant Imperishable Scripture was about to break the third flesh extreme realm, it is said to have saved him several years of hard work. However, compared to the rumored efficacy of the fire tree silver flower, while the actual effect appeared to be a bit of a misnomer, this caused some discrepancy in Chu Mo's heart. After all, it's not a loss if you've gotten the benefit of the doubt and your body hasn't been in an accident. Trummer comforted himself with this. After adjusting his mind, he then planned to take Dale out of here. But before you go, Chu Mo first collected all the little yuan liquid left in the spirit spring. The fire tree was then dug out and placed in the carry-on space. Although the silver flower had already been swallowed by him, the fire tree was full of treasures, especially the immortal spirit chi it possessed, which was capable of gradually transforming a martial artist's physique to have a flawless body. Even if Chu Mo was a flawless foundation builder, all clean and flawless, there was always a benefit to carrying it on one's body. After gaining so many benefits this time, it's time to leave. It's just the right time to raise your cultivation to the 8 desolate exalted realm in one go. Thinking so, Chu Mo left this cave straight away, then followed the path he came from and prepared to leave. However, just as he returned to the tunnel and prepared to leave, he suddenly sensed several strong auras coming this way. After mentally sensing for a while, Chu Mo hastily exerted his dark attribute talent and hid in a shadowed corner. Soon, those scents then rapidly approached. When Chu Mo raised his eyes and looked, he realized that it was 5 or 6 tall earth cave cavemen, each with the cultivation level of 4 square Zhenjiang, who were now walking forward while talking. To Chumum's surprise, the words spoken by these grotto cavemen were actually in their human language. Just now, the elders sent me a message that the Heavenly Monument of Enlightenment is about to open, so we're about to rush over there. But didn't the elder say for us to give a shout out to Amo and the 3 of them, but we haven't found any sign of them yet. The 3 of them are usually the most playful, they can't even learn the language of humans. I reckon they must have run off somewhere because of their playfulness again. Anyway, there won't be any accidents in the middle of this underground cave. We'd better go to the Heavenly Tablet of Enlightenment first, in case if we miss it, we'll lose out on a lot of money. Or maybe Amo and the 3 of them have gotten word to rush over. Also, go on, let's not delay. It would be bad if we missed the opening. A few people were talking and leaving quickly at the same time. They're actually learning the human language? When they left, Chu Mo stood in the shadows with a look of shock on his face. What does that mean? These grotto cavemen who live under the ground have a connection to the humans on the surface. It was just unclear to Chummer whether their relationship with humans was good or bad. But none of that matters. Importantly, Chu Mo had gotten another important piece of news from their conversation. The Heavenly Tablet of Enlightenment. They actually possess a Heavenly Tablet of Enlightenment. Chu Mo's heart fluttered. He had already seen the Heavenly Tablet of Enlightenment twice. What he encountered for the first time was a Blade Intent stone tablet, thus allowing his enlightenment to reach the 30% Blade Intent realm. And the second time it even contained spatial laws, allowing him to comprehend a strand of spatial mysteries. Each time it allowed Chu Mo to gain a lot and his strength to increase greatly. Right now, he learned the whereabouts of another Enlightenment stone tablet. Can't miss. Chummer decided. Although this Heavenly Tablet of Enlightenment was bound to be heavily guarded by the other side, he possessed the dark attribute talent, and it would be difficult for these Earth Cave cavemen to detect it. As for pupil talent, Chumo didn't believe that there would be a second Earth Cave caveman with a talent for pupil arts in the other party's tribe. After all, this kind of talent was rare. Besides, even if he was unlucky and there really was another martial artist with a talent for pupil arts, the big deal would be in retreating back. To this day, Chumo's physical body's base strength had all reached 130,000 elephant strength, plus after the silver flowers enhancement, his great diffusion divine light mysterious code had also been cultivated to the point of perfection at the first layer, and his power had risen greatly. Even if it was a King Realm powerhouse in front of him, he would not be defeated, and there was even a certain possibility that he would be able to kill him. Even if the other party was strong and difficult to resist, the big thing was to perform an instantaneous transfer to escape. Compared to the benefits, Chumhum is not worth the risks. Thinking about this, Chumo directly operated his dark attribute talent and then quickly followed them all the way around the grotto. Half an hour later, Chumo and the others arrived in a very large underground cave. This was an underground square that was more than hundreds of thousands of square meters in circumference, and at this moment, hundreds of Earth Cave cavemen had already converged inside, and each of them exuded an aura that was comparable to that of the Jin general realm. Beyond that, Chumo also sensed a few very strong breaths from a short distance away. As his eyes gazed over, he realized that these several auras comparable to the King realm were flowing out from 5 old men with white hair and whiskers. They sat cross-legged on the stones extending from the stone walls surrounding the square, looking down. 5 existences, comparable to the King realm. Chumo's heart fluttered. He then silently made his way to the exit, surveying the surroundings warily. Just in case he was discovered, he could escape from here at the first opportunity. Just as Chumo was observing, at this moment, all of the cave people had already arrived. Dang! The sound of a bell came out steeply, and then hundreds of Earth Cave cavemen were seen kneeling on the ground, saluting in unison to the 5 old men on the stone wall above. Greetings to the elders. They shouted in unison, in the language of mankind, all rise. An old man comparable to the King realm stood up and spoke. The heavenly tablet of enlightenment is once again open. You are all the young descendants of the Gu clan lineage of my Earth Cave. I hope that you will be able to gain insights from this, and perpetuate the splendor of the Gu clan for me. Alright, time is coming, all of you get ready for enlightenment. This elder did not say much and opened the door. The numerous Earth Cave cavemen below then geared up and looked at the large area in the center of the plaza as if they were gazing. Chumo also rested his gaze on the past. It just made him curious. There were no facilities in the square, and there was not even a trace of the heavenly tablet of enlightenment to be seen, so how were these people supposed to go to enlightenment? Just as Chumo was thinking like this suddenly, the time has come. Those 5 originally still old god and the elders suddenly rose in unison, the eyes of the various aura burst flash, then actually have their hands into a variety of strange handprints, the mouth also chanting sound. A few breaths later. Buzz. In the air, a strange fluctuation suddenly came from the air. Next moment, Chumo then saw the void in front of him steeply crack open a gap, from which a stone tablet appeared and eventually landed in the middle of the square. They actually managed to summon the heavenly tablet of enlightenment? Looking at the scene in front of him, Chumo's pupils contracted dramatically, almost unable to believe his eyes. It's well known. The heavenly tablet of enlightenment was a manifestation of the laws of heaven and earth. The place and time of appearance is purely random and cannot be manipulated by human hands at all. And these Earth Cave cavemen actually possessed the means to summon the heavenly tablet of enlightenment. He couldn't help the waves of shock that rippled through his mind. In the meantime, along with the appearance of the heavenly tablet of enlightenment, a large formation also steeply lingered out, covering all of an area around the stone tablet. Makes it difficult to see outside to see inside. The heavenly tablet has already descended, so you should quickly go in and comprehend it. One of the elders loudly stormed out. With the fall of his words, the many Earth Cave cavemen were scrambling towards within the large formation. only to see their bodies collide against the barrier, sending out a ripple, and then they disappeared in a whirlwind. Even with spatial perception, they could no longer be detected. Seeing this scene, Chumo hesitated a bit. But after thinking about it, he still clenched his teeth, and his body hid under the shadow of an underground caveman as he swept towards the large formation. There was a ripple as his body touched the curtain of light of the grand formation. Chumo then realized that he had already entered the grand formation. In the meantime, a rich aura of the laws of heaven and earth then lingered everywhere around his body. Chapter 175, Mastering the 7 Upanishads, Pure to the Extreme Blade. Into what the eye sees. Surrounded by chaos, as if in the middle of the starry sky, completely unable to see the figure of other people, the whole world is only Chumo one person, in addition to the endless breath of the law. This should be a large formation specially set up by the Earth Cave caveman so that every martial artist can concentrate on their enlightenment, preventing them from being disturbed by others. Also, it prevents prying eyes of others and protects the privacy of every grotto caveman. Chumo thought darkly. After all, the means that each Earth Cave caveman had realized were their own cards, so naturally, they couldn't be known by others. But that way, I don't have to worry about being found out. A smile appeared on Chumo's face. The outside couldn't peek inside, and since the cave dwellers in the inside couldn't see each other, Chumo naturally didn't have to worry about being detected. Thinking so, he then stopped wasting time and directly sat down on his knees, concentrating and experiencing the laws of heaven and earth around him. But just as he began to comprehend, Chumo couldn't help but reveal a strange color on his face. According to Chumo's experience of experiencing the Enlightenment Stone Tablet on the previous 2 occasions, the so-called Enlightenment Stone Tablet was a manifestation of the laws of heaven and earth, and any of the tablets had its own focus, either containing the laws of space, the laws of the 5 elements, or other laws. But this monolith in front of us, Chumo, however, did not feel any attribute aura. Spiritual energy escaped, and Chumo only felt that the laws of the heavens and earth around him contained a mysterious aura that surrounded his body, causing his mind to be empty, his thinking to be active, and it was as if his enlightenment had been boosted by countless times. With a slight movement of his mind, he was able to experience a strand of many Gongfu mysteries that he had not been able to discover before, flowing through his mind. Murphy. The function of this Enlightenment Stone Tablet is to enhance a martial artist's enlightenment? Such a thought arose in Chumo's mind. Try. He immediately began to mobilize the wind attribute talent within his body, and a strand of wind Upanishad converged within his body. In the past, the wind Upanishad, which he only found to be obscure and difficult to understand, at this moment, it seemed to have been amplified, allowing Chumo to easily observe it, and in a flash, Chumo realized that his understanding of the wind Upanishad was on a higher level. It really does enhance enlightenment. Chumo's heart was invigorated, and then he completely immersed his entire being in enlightenment, comprehending his Upanishads through and through. 1 day passed. 2 days passed. In the blink of an eye, Chumo had already been comprehending for a full half-month. This day, Chumo suddenly opened his eyes. A flash of confusion first appeared in his eyes, then he came to his senses, followed by a flash of excitement. This enlightenment heavenly tablet that boosted enlightenment was simply too strong for Chumo. In this half a month's time, it gave him great benefits. The first was the Upanishad of wind, which was comprehended by him from 1 strand to 20%. The Upanishad of wood, on the other hand, had gone from the original 20% participation to 27%. The spatial talent, moreover, was comprehended to the realm of 10% from the original 7 points level. Beyond that, the transcendent rank fire attribute talent, transcendent rank earth attribute talent, transcendent rank metallic talent, and transcendent rank indestructible thunder body that Chumo possessed also allowed him to possess the qualifications to comprehend the Upanishads. During this period of time, there were even more introductions, and they all realized a strand of the mysteries. And that means Chumo had already mastered 7 types of Upanishads. It even included a top-notch aeon like spatial talent. no doubt about it. If this news were to spread out, it would definitely shock countless martial artists, even those who were strong in the King realm would have to go crazy over it. Normally, it is extremely difficult to comprehend the Upanishads, but with the help of this heavenly tablet of enlightenment, it has caused me to comprehend all of these Upanishads, and I will be able to slowly improve them in the future. And if I continue to comprehend these Upanishads next, at most, I will only be able to comprehend 1 or 2 Upanishads to the point of 30 or 40%, and for today's me, my strength will not be able to produce a qualitative leap. But my blade intent has been comprehended to the point of 70%, if I can comprehend the remaining 30% and reach the 10% blade intent consummation realm, then I will be able to open up a blade Tao of my own, which will surely bring about an earth-shattering change in my strength. Thinking of this, Chu Mo immediately decided to enroll in blade intent. He sat on his knees, took out the autumn-killing blade and placed it on his lap. His mind communicated with the long blade, invoking the blade intent in his body, and under the enlightenment of the enlightenment heavenly tablet's added power, he slowly enumerated. Countless saber intent subtleties flowed through Chu Mo's mind, and a sharp saber intent escaped from his surroundings. Accompanied by the Senate, Chu Mo's blade intent realm was also rising rapidly. 70% 1. 72%. 73%. Almost every moment, his blade intent was soaring, and the growth from one day's bitter cultivation was almost comparable to a year in the outside world. It was an extremely terrifying speed. In a flash 15 days passed. Chu Mo's saber intent had already been comprehended to the 99% point. It was only 1 point away from perfection. However, it was precisely this point of blade intent that prevented Chu Mo from reaching it no matter what. Chu Mo's heart couldn't help but feel a little anxious. He didn't know when the heavenly monument of enlightenment would close, but it had already been open for a month, so he thought it must not be far from the end. If he couldn't perfect the saber intent this time, he wouldn't know when to wait until the next time. Attend with all your might. Chu Mo took a deep breath, discarding all thoughts and devoting his entire being to enlightenment. A little bit of time passes. Chu Mo didn't know how long had passed, but suddenly, there seemed to be an aura flashing in his mind, and then a strange fluctuation came. Next moment, Chu Mo then realized that his spirit seemed to have entered a mysterious world. This is the world of knives. As far as the eye could see, there were white blade chi everywhere. They emitted a terrifying aura, whistling and coming and going, intertwining and entwining with each other in this world, cutting out black cracks in space one after another. Noteworthy. These blade chi, although they had the same power as each other, the aura they emitted was different. Some of them are so hallowed and vast that it is as if they are facing the might of heaven and earth. Some of them are so devilishly flaming that they are like hell descending to earth. In addition, there are more sinister and tricky knife chi, neutral and calm knife chi. To name a few. Chu Mo carefully observed it, then his heart was clear. Obviously, these blade chi were all manifestations of the Tao of the blade. Where, then, is my word? Chu Mo murmured out, and in his mind, he began to think back to his past along the way. Since practicing, Chu Mo had so far only had a handful of 3 blade techniques. Bronze grade blade skill, the breaking blade. Silver grade blade skill, berserker thunder blade. Gold level sword skill, Xian Tian battling slash. Though the blade techniques practiced were few. However, every blade skill had been cultivated by him to the level of perfection, completely reaching the realm of integration. This had surpassed countless martial artists. More importantly, a sword was a killing weapon, and Chu Mo used it only to kill his enemies. It is all about efficiency. Chu Mo knew that there were many other martial artists who preached the idea of bringing hundreds of rivers into the sea and melting all methods into one. Certainly this is also a path, but more people are immersed in the refutation of all kinds of martial arts skills, difficult to take that vital step, and ultimately fall into the lower ranks, being mastered by the sword, rather than people mastering the sword. Such a sword, even if it was stronger, was not what Chu Mo needed. For Chummer, a knife is just a tool. A tool that made him good enough to take on his enemies and cut down the obstacles in his way. Because of this, even these 3 sword techniques that he had learned were just pure killing techniques in his mind. This led to his blade being pure from start to finish. Pure to the point of being just to kill the enemy. So, for me, my path of the Tao of the blade shall be pure, the ultimate purity. There is no refutation of fancy, nor any tedious techniques, pure to the point of being straightforward, pure to the point that a single blade is enough to break all laws. Not sticking to any form, jumping out of the shackles of the blade technique itself, and pointing directly to what it seeks. If you want to kill someone, when the sword comes out, the killing intent in your heart rises to the sky, and the sword is wrapped with a killing energy that frightens heaven and earth and makes the ghosts and gods cry. If you want to save a person, then point the long sword. The sword momentum is vast and grand, and the sword gas contains the power of the Hall, dare to suppress the world. So, it is only my way of the sword. After realizing this in his heart, almost at the same time, an incomparably large blade intent rose steeply from Chumo's body. In the meantime, the 365 knife orifices up and down the circumference of his body were also trembling in unison, and the knife-shaped cyclones within them rotated and rushed out, converging and fusing in his meridians, and ultimately transforming into a volatile torrent that rushed up. This torrent was so sharp and terrifying that it was actually like an invisible knife, charging straight to the center of the brow. Boom! There was a sudden pop in his head, as if the heavens had opened up, and the clear ones rose and the turbid ones fell. And after that, the leakage of what comes after the chaos. A flash of gold. It exudes a mysterious, volatile, and unmatched golden light. The moment this light appeared, an invisible yet seemingly tangible blade cleaved through some sort of shackle that Chumo had temporary difficulty understanding, causing a force that he could not understand for the time being to surge into the center of his brow. In an instant, the golden light converged, rotated, and rose, and finally actually turned into a hilt knife. A sword with a sharp edge and a powerful aura. These treasured knives, which are spreading to the place of the brow at an unimaginable speed, will gradually tear that smooth brow, and finally reveal a crack. Golden light shone through, illuminating all directions. Judas. One golden eye. But the weird thing is, this eye that appeared on Chumo's brow looked like an eye, but whoever saw it felt that it seemed more like a sword. Words cannot describe this eerie feeling. But if there were outsiders here and they saw it, they would be horrified. Because, along with the moment this eye appeared, a vast and groundless sword intent that exuded an astonishing aura, as if it shouldn't exist in this world, also spread out and swept into every corner of this world. All the whistling blade chi instantly quieted down when they felt this aura. Then prostrate himself on the ground, it seems to be kneeling to greet their king. Chapter 176 Field of Blades, Taking Stock of the Harvest. And all of this, Chumo did not realize. At this moment, this golden light infused into the center of the brow had already flowed into all the limbs and bones, as well as every inch of skin and flesh up and down the circumference of the body. In a split second, his meridians, veins, muscles, and bones were filled with golden light among them, transmitting an indescribable sharpness and power. Under the convergence of these golden lights, it is like a tiny knife, gradually solidifying and metamorphosing in his body, and then sublimating. Finally, it transformed into a sword. A supremely powerful sword. And at this moment, his body was this sword. It gave him a kind of realization. Supreme Blade Body. This is the Supreme Blade Body. He could feel that even though on the outside it looked like his body did not have any abnormalities or any sharpness leaking out, there was an extremely terrifying saber intent and saber chi hidden within his body. It's like a silent volcano. Once it erupts, it will surely exhibit earth-shattering power. At the same time, the moment his body transformed into a sword, Chumo also felt that his consciousness seemed to have suddenly detached from his body and appeared in the void. There was nothing in this void but a sword. The divine sword that was permeated with golden light and endless mystery and sharpness. It was his body, transformed into a sword. The sword is a weapon of killing, and someone should master it. Even the body of the blade will surely be driven by its owner. It's to the moment he saw the blade, he naturally reached out his hand and bit by bit gripped the hilt of the blade. Clank! The sound of knives chiming resounded steeply. It seemed to tear apart the heavens and earth and break through the chaos, steeply appearing in the depths of his soul and echoing and stirring. In this instant, he felt that his consciousness seemed to be pulling itself up infinitely, as if it had passed through layers of invisible shackles and barriers and entered an even more profound and subtle realm of swords. This is the more subtle realm. This was the realm above blade intent. This is the realm of the way of the knife. This moment Chu Mo violently opened his eyes, and within them, there was a hidden aura that flashed by. In his pupils, it seemed that he could vaguely see a figure wielding a long knife, lifting his hand and throwing his foot to chop out countless knife chi, longitudinally and horizontally whistling in the void, obviously illusory but giving a very real feeling. And along with this figure's sword, as Chu Mo's mind rotated, a sword also steeply appeared in his hand, a sword made with a sword chi-tho illusion, rotating under his swing. From the outside, the blade formed by this blade chi was extremely ordinary and unusual. But when he landed in Chu Mo's hands, he became uncommon in an instant. Clank! Accompanied by the sound of the saber's roar, in the saber chi world where this spirit was located, countless different saber chi seemed to have been affected by some sort of influence, and trembled out in unison. Buzz! 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 The chirping sounds grew louder and higher pitched to the later. The entire world seemed to be left with just this one voice, and all the blade chi trembled with it. Boom! I don't know how much time has passed. Under the convergence of these sword sounds, a deafening roar actually erupted. This seemed to be a signal, and in an instant, the 365 blade orifices up and down the circumference of Chu Mo's body also trembled in unison, and then countless subtle blade chi surged out from his body. These tiny knife threads had the same root and origin as the yuan chi in his body, but they were distinct from each other. With a movement in Chu Mo's heart, the chi, blood, and yuan power in his body surged into the blade silk like 10,000 rivers returning to the sea. In a split second, these blade wires seemed to come alive, connecting one by one within his body, and then even more so with an unimaginable means. All the blade orifices and all the meridians up and down his circumference were all strung together uniquely. Chu Mo's mind moved slightly, and the blade silk was like an arm's length, rushing out of the body along with the blade orifice, spreading to a range of tens of miles around his body. Snort! 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 Only a faint to extremely weak sound of breaking air could be heard coming from the air, and it was as if Chu Mo's surroundings had turned into a sea of blade wires. Countless knife filaments moved along with his intention, whistling and tumbling, and breaking the air in a harsh manner, as if there were countless more arms. Arm? Thinking this thought, Chu Mo's mind moved again. In an instant, hundreds more long knives were generated out of thin air, and then they actually surrounded him within an area of tens of miles around him. They intertwined and shuttled with each other, and in the end, they actually formed a dense curtain of blade chi in this area. No. To say it's a curtain is a bit of an understatement. More accurately, it should be blade domain. Chu Mo suddenly stopped all of his movements, the entire person stood in place, his body emitting a golden light, a horrifyingly stern aura and killing intent escaping from his body, causing him to be like a long sword, crossing the sky and the earth. The so-called blade domain is the domain of the blade. The martial arts in the world include all things, and any martial arts stance has its own intent, just as the sword has a sword intent, the knife has a knife intent, the fist has a fist intent, and so on. If one is in possession of blade and sword intent, then an ordinary martial artist will not even be able to pull out his blade or sword in front of him. But this is still in the realm of art. Only having a domain means that one has jumped out of the realm of arts and techniques and entered the realm of the Tao. In this state of mind, the power of the performer's moves rises greatly, as if they were divinely assisted, as if all heaven and earth were borrowed when the time comes, while the enemy is weakened in disguise, as if the transported heroes are not free. Chuemo murmured out, and his eyes gradually brightened before the realm. Even the strongest martial artist, even if the power of the blade and sword techniques were terrifying, at best, they would only be in the realm of using the blade and sword. Only when the realm of intent is complete, when one is clear about one's own path, and when one masters one's own domain, can one truly call it the Tao. The realm of the Tao. Some of them were similar to the realm after certain attributes Upanishad had been raised to great perfection, and thus it was difficult for even a king realm powerhouse to comprehend them. But at this moment, relying on this enlightenment stone tablet that boosted enlightenment, relying on Chumo's morning star ranked blade technique cultivation talent, as well as his previous accumulation, with many various additions, Chuemo had completely advanced his blade intent to the 10% great perfection realm, and had comprehended his own path, opening up his own blade domain. Just this. It would then have endless benefits for his future growth. Even more so, his strength had been sublimated to the extreme. Phew. At some point, Chumo's consciousness returned to his physical body. Look at this moment. The aura coming off of him was no different than before. But only Tremor himself knew. This enlightenment stone tablet had already given him a sea change. Buzz off. Just then the aura that escaped from the martial way stone tablet began to gradually sink in, and the surrounding great formation began to shake violently. It should be over, Chumo thought darkly. He then immediately activated his dark attribute talent and hid in this shadow. It didn't take long. Chuemo then realized that all the mysterious aura around him dissipated for it, and this big formation also dissolved into nothingness with a bang. Without the cover of the black mist, the numerous figures of the Earth Cave cavemen appeared in the square. It can be seen. A look of disappointment and awakening from a dream passed over the faces of these Earth Cave cavemen, but immediately, their faces revealed expressions of excitement one after another. Obviously, they are not small gains. And as visible to the naked eye, the aura on all of them was much thicker. Even more so. Some of the cave dwellers had risen from the strength of a general of the 4 directions to the realm of an 8 wastelands venerator. Looking at such a harvest, the 5 Earth Cave caveman powerhouses above them that were comparable to the king realm all showed excitement on their faces. Then he opened his mouth, admonishing and exhorting these young juniors. Just these. Chumo then had no more patience to listen. Relying on his dark attribute talent, he hid in the shadows and carefully returned the way he came. 1 hour later, Chumo left the grotto and returned to the surface. This place was already completely far away from the underground cave, and a flash of excitement could not be suppressed from his face at last. The harvest gained from this trip to the underground cave is just too great. Medium pupil talent. An entire vein of yuan stone worth close to 300 billion lower-grade yuan stones, which also contained millions of upper-grade yuan stones. Fire trees that do not grow in the land of non-immortal spirits, and silver flowers that do not bloom in the land of non-immortal spirits. The 4 attributes of thunder, fire, earth, and gold, all of which were initiated, were mastered to the point of a wisp of axiom. The Upanishad of wind, comprehended to 20%. The Upanishad of wood, comprehended to 27%. Spatial talent, enlisted to 10%. Even more, the knife will be raised from the original 70% to 10% of the great circle of the realm, and more out of their own knife road, evolved the knife domain. Beyond that, the dragon elephant imperishable scripture was also raised to the 2nd level of perfection, just 1 step away from breaking the 3rd flesh body extreme realm. The Great Diffusion Divine Light Mysterious Code was thoroughly initiated and cultivated to the point of perfection at the 1st level, causing the power of the Yuan Shin to multiply. These takeaways, if it was obtained by any other martial artist, even just any one of them would be enough to make them go crazy, and even a king realm powerhouse would have to go into ecstasy over it, but Chuemo obtained all of them at once. Obviously. Such a harvest of amazing power. So much so that Chuemo couldn't help but have his heart stacked up and couldn't help himself for a moment. After a long enough time, He then gradually calmed down. Now my physical body strength has reached 130,000 elephant strength. It's also already less than 20,000 elephants of power away from Jin general perfection. It's a step away. Both. The next step is to focus on cultivation and step into the 8 desolate exalted realm at the fastest speed possible. Then, get your hands on that one chance that was occupied by the bloodthirsty berserker crocodile. Chummer murmured. Sure. And he won't forget the grotto. Once he stepped into the 8 desolate exalted realm, he would have to make some careful inquiries about these earth cave cavemen within the base. Thinking so, Chu Mo gazed deeply at this grotto, and then mobilized his yuan power, and the entire person then turned into a stream of light and rushed into the clouds, breaking through the clouds along the way, and swept towards the direction of the Jinling large base. Chapter 177 Meridian Impact Method, Stepping into the 8 Desolate Exalted Realm. The secret world. After returning here, Chu Mo then directly placed 50 billion lower-grade yuan stones into the alcove, then took out the last bit of yuan liquid and drank it in one gulp. Boom! The terrifying energy instantly melted away in the body and flowed into the limbs and bones. Wherever it passes, the qi, blood, and yuan power of his body were all wildly active with it, as if it was an erupting volcano. Strive to break through the last 20,000 elephant power barrier in one go, and then step into the 8 desolate exalted realm. Thinking so, Chu Mo then closed his eyes and entered into seclusion. After the 50 billion lower-grade yuan qi petrified, the terrifying yuan qi filled the area, forming an extremely terrifying yuan qi vortex that swarmed towards Chu Mo's body. Just like that, Chu Mo's strength, as time passed, was surging by leaps and bounds. In a flash. And already 50 days had passed. Within these 50 days, Chu Mo hadn't even moved, and had been impacting the final realm with all his might. Finally, just this day, a majestic force steeply swept out from Chu Mo's body, and the wave of qi that was set off caused the surrounding yuan qi to stir wildly, as if it was churning like a cloud of qi. 150,000 elephant power. Chu Mo opened his eyes, feeling the majestic qi and blood power in his body, and could not help but murmur. Nowadays, after such a long period of hard cultivation, his qi and blood power had finally reached the Jin general's limit of 150,000 elephant power, and he could begin to move towards the 8 desolate exalted. Every martial artist has acupoints all over their body. And if you want to become an 8 desolate venerable, you need to open all the acupoints up and down your circumference, unlocking the treasures of the human body and awakening the energy in the acupoints. Every acupoint opened can possess supreme greatness. But this is only the most ordinary means of stepping into the 8 desolate exalted realm. Even if you cross over, your strength won't be too strong, and if you don't have a special talent, at best, it'll be about the same as Su Lang. The 8 desolate venerable ones quenched their acupoints. There were 365 acupoints within the human body, and if one wanted to step into the 8 desolate venerable realm, one would first need to sense the location of the acupoints, and then open all 365 acupoints in order to step into the extreme level of the 8 desolate venerable realm. But this just the most common means. Even if one became an 8 desolate exalted extremity, if they didn't have talent, their strength would only be the lowest of the 8 desolate exalted extremities. Thus, Chu Mo did not intend to step into Zunshur by opening his acupoints. Actually, even if he wanted to do that, he couldn't. Thus Chu Mo's 365 acupoints up and down his circumference had all been completely opened and transformed into blade orifices as soon as he had comprehended 30% of the blade intent. And at 70% blade intent, it was even linked together to achieve the supreme blade body. So this kind of tactic was not suitable for Chu Mo. There is a higher level promotion method recorded in the Green Cloud Yuan Power Body Forging Secret Art, and that is to use the entire body's meridians as the foundation, and when carrying qi and blood, to drive the entire body's qi and blood power to vibrate and resonate against the body, connecting the 12 proper meridians and driving the 8 odd meridians to resonate in unison. Every resonance not only can enhance the strength, but also can let the whole body once again get a quenching, if their own flesh foundation is solid, and even can use this body quenching into an indestructible golden body, so that the defense and strength increased greatly. When the 12 proper meridians and the 8 strange meridians are all metamorphosed, it will be the extreme of Azunshur, and then the meridians will unite and step into the Cave King realm. Thinking about the relevant records in his mind, Chumo's eyes gradually brightened, no doubt about it. It was this method of promotion that he favored even more only. This method of promotion was much more difficult than opening up acupoints. Not only does it require very strong roots, but the resources consumed are even more terrifying. In the records of the Green Cloud Yuan Power Forging Secret Art, it was also specially labeled so that martial artists should not try it easily, otherwise, once the foundation was not up to the standard, the first shock would lead to the martial artist's strength being greatly damaged in the light case, and the heavy case of going out of control. Even if one succeeded in the first shock and luckily stepped into the exalted realm, it would be very difficult to advance subsequently. He could only be stuck in the Zunshur realm for the rest of his life, never having the chance to step into the king realm again, leading to a life of regret. But these did not deter Trummer. And let's not talk about the fact that nowadays he could only attempt this method to step into the exalted realm. Not to mention when Chumo was in the martial artist realm, he broke the limit of his physical body, and possessed as much as 10 times more foundation than an unusual martial artist before stepping into the realm of the martial artist. When he was a martial artist, he even used the innate jade bead to cast a flawless Tao foundation to step into the realm of the patriarch, transforming a flawless bone in his body, with an unparalleled foundation. Plus, he had already broken the physical body extreme realm twice so far through the dragon elephant undying scripture. With such a majestic foundation, almost no one can match it. That's why Chumo wasn't worried about failing at all. He only needed to cultivate according to the method of impact recorded on the Green Cloud Yuan Power Forging Secret Art. Qingyun Meridian Impact Method. This was the method of promotion recorded in the Green Cloud Yuan Power Body Forging Secret Art. Chumo first replenished 30 billion yuan stones again, then closed his eyes, sat cross-legged, his consciousness entered his body, and began to cultivate in accordance with the way recorded in the impact law. The moment he ran the impact method, the endless yuan qi around him immediately swept towards him. In the meantime, the qi and blood within Chumo's body also instantly turned into a volcano that suddenly erupted. Yuan power boiled in the meridians, roaring like an ocean. The two kept circling, faster and more sharply. Eventually, boom! Seemingly reaching a critical point, a terrifying explosion abruptly erupted within Chumo's body. Next moment, his eyes snapped open, his eye sockets were instantly streaked with blood, and his body's qi and blood transformed into a sharp sword that rushed within the 12 orthodox meridians. Break me! A bellowing cry. The meridians underneath Chumo's skin protruded all over his body, and like a gnarled dragon coiled in his body, they began to swim. The qi, blood, and yuan power in his body even seemed to have transformed into two 10,000-foot giants. One could only see the qi and blood giant stepping on the volcano, and the yuan power giant stepping on the sea, both of them roaring up to the sky in unison, and then they raised their arms together and slammed down with a loud bang. Boom! 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 Shasta! It's like the sky is turning over. Again, it is like the first birth of chaos. A huge shocking force came steeply, up and down the body, limbs and bones in the continuous reverberation, so that Chumo's 5 viscera and 6 bowels are collapsed in this instant, the eardrums are also deaf, consciousness is even more blurred, and even the spirit of the yuan are ripples, some signs of instability. That's not all. The muscles of his body also emitted the sound of tearing at the same time, and his skin was even cracking inch by inch, as if it were dry earth, with a terrifying crack appearing. No doubt about it, if this continued, Chumo's body was definitely going to explode. But just for a moment. A wave of warmth was suddenly born. Wherever it passed, the skin began to gradually recover, and the internal organs were making up for it even more quickly. The healing power brought about by the transcendent grade would attribute talent. In vitro. The endless yuan qi was absorbed in and subsequently transformed into healing energy, rapidly compensating Chumo's body. Soon, the 5 viscera and 6 bowels had been mended and completed. And that's when the 12 proper meridians and the 8 odd meridians seemed to have some sort of coordinated connection, and were suddenly connected through and through. This moment. A terrifying aura immediately swept out from Chumo's body, transforming into an astonishing column of aura that shot up into the sky. Even the smoke and clouds in the sky were stirred up by it. There was even a wave of air, centered on Chumo's body, which escaped in all directions, and wherever it passed, the earth looked like it had been plowed through, and countless grasses, trees, and debris were annihilated. Even the towering mountains in the distance were directly collapsed by the impact of the air waves. A terrifying aura rippled across hundreds of miles in every direction. As for Chumo's strength, it even began to soar at this moment. The power of 160,000 elephants. The power of 180,000 elephants. The power of 200,000 elephants. Eventually, Chumo's physical body's base strength was completely fixed at 800,000 elephant strength. After reaching this step, countless cells and genes within Chumo's body were also vibrating crazily, and were rapidly reorganizing and regenerating in the midst of this vibration. With every tremor, an invisible ripple would escape and spread to all the limbs and bones. Under such a shock, the muscles and bones of Chumo's entire body were continuously sublimating. This was evolution on the level of life. The bones became firmer, even tinged with a hint of gold, and the muscles became more well-proportioned and translucent. A stream of impurities, expelled from his body, clung to his skin, but then fell off in droves as his cells vibrated. I don't know how much time has passed. The tremor finally disappeared completely. The moment. If there were outsiders here, they would be able to discover that Chumo's entire body's skin exuded a surfeit of luster, and from afar, it seemed like a piece of congealed white jade, smooth and delicate. The whole body is like a glaze, pure and spotless, untainted by dust. Since then, step into the realm of the 8 desolate honored ones. Chumo murmured with a light sigh of relief. Any 8 desolate exalt was a supreme hegemon who sealed the borders and cracked the land, and could sit on a large base of 10 million people on one side and suppress all turmoil. It belongs to the true mainstay of humanity, the absolute high-end fighting force. And nowadays, Chumo had finally reached this realm as well. It made him unable to resist a surge of joy in his heart. After lamenting a bit, Chumo began to check his changes. The first is the increase in longevity. An ordinary 8 desolate exalt would only have 1,000 years of lifespan at most. However, Chumo possessed a wood attribute talent with rich vitality, and coupled with his strong and unparalleled foundation, the longevity he gained exceeded that of an ordinary Zuni by as much as double. Second lies the strength. Breaking through the 8 desolate exalted realm, his strength instantly skyrocketed to 800,000 elephant powers. The strength has changed drastically from the past. With my current physical body's base strength, and with the many talents added, ordinary king realms are no longer my opponent, and only senior king realms or even king realm powerhouses with special talent additions will be able to have a battle with me. Next, it's also time to search for that bloodthirsty berserker crocodile and find out the secret treasure hidden underneath the heavenly star blade bamboo. Think about it. Chumo couldn't help but show a refined aura in his eyes. Chapter 178 Mo Clan Ancestors Shock, Old Matters Revisited. But before leaving with the principle of not wasting anything, Chumo cultivated for another period of time, absorbing all the yuan qi around him, and at the same time stabilizing the realm he had just raised. 5 days later. Under the high-speed growth period after the realm breakthrough, Chumo's physical body strength reached 850,000 elephant power, and only then did he leave this place. Jinling Big Base. When Chumo returned within the villa, he happened to see Chen Shiwei drilling martial arts skills right in the living room. Looking at Chumo returned, his face was first happy, then seemed to sense something, and could not help but say, "Husband, I feel that your strength has become much stronger again, could it be that you? Nice. Chuemo nodded and said with a smile, a few days ago, I have successfully stepped into the 8 desolate exalted realm. Congratulations, husband. Chen Shiwei was instantly filled with smiles and sent her heartfelt blessings. I would also like to congratulate you for successfully stepping into the 4 directions Shin General realm. Chummer said with a smile. He could feel that the fluctuations emanating from Chen Shiwei were clearly at the level of the 4 directions Shin General, and the realm was very solid, clearly having stepped into the Shin General realm for a short period of time as well. Think about it. Ever since he had entered that small secret realm in seclusion. First, it was a 3-month closed-door cultivation, then he went forward to excavate the Yuan stone mine, and as a result, he stayed in the underground cave for 2 months because of the Enlightenment stone tablet to the extent that he returned to the secret realm and closed-door cultivation for close to 2 months, which added up to more than half a year before and after. It was only natural that Chen Shiwei had stepped into the level of the 4 directions town general. After all, when he entered the secret realm retreat, Xia Wei was already at the peak of Zhongshe, and was only 1 step away from being a Jin general. Not even close to husband. Listening to Chu Mo's compliments, Chen Shiwei pursed her lips and said with a slight blush. When Chu Mo saw it, he couldn't help but be moved in his heart. The two of them then spent some time cuddling in the living room, and before they knew it, it was noon. Chu Mo opened his mouth and said, I'm in a good mood today, so I'll personally cook and make a big meal. Chen Shiwei agreed happily since. In fact, with Chu Mo and Chen Shiwei's cultivation realms, both of them already didn't need to eat, and could completely rely on drawing on the heaven and earth's vital energy to fulfill their daily needs. But 2 people together always have to have some life in them. As usual, when they woke up from seclusion, they would make a special meal and the 2 of them would eat while chatting, which would create a cozy atmosphere and enhance the feelings between the 2 of them. What's more, Chu Mo had so many heavenly treasures in his carry-on space, and the ingredients used for cooking were all rich in majestic energy, which could be absorbed to slightly increase his strength. Noon. Chu Mo made a table full of dishes and chatted with Chen Shiwei while eating. The main story is about some of the situations they encountered themselves while they were in seclusion. Chen Shiwei recounted some of the obstacles she encountered when she broke through the realm and how she managed to break through. Chu Mo, on the other hand, was recounting how he went out to explore for treasures when he lacked Yuan stones, and ended up encountering the Earth Cave caveman. The 2 spoke very plain words, but they were filled with a warmth and ease, and even both sides could feel the 2 hearts getting closer together as well. The faint trace of strangeness that had arisen because they hadn't seen each other for half a year in seclusion was dissolving into nothingness with it. After the meal, Chen Shiwei was going out to buy some heavenly materials used in cultivation. Chu Mo then accompanied her out and headed to the Jade Merchant Alliance. When Chu Mo just showed up, the Jade Merchant Alliance thought that Chu Mo had something important to do, so they put up a big show. And even the old ancestor of the Mo family was startled and came out of seclusion, bringing Mo Yangon and Mo Shanshan to meet him. Venerable Chu, I haven't seen you in many days, what brings you here today? Accompanied by a hearty laugh, the Mo clan's old ancestor appeared in the middle of the hall. Greetings, Venerable Chu. Chu Hakchan. Mo Yangon and Mo Shanshan also saluted. Watching the 3 of them appear, Chu Mo was somewhat helpless. Originally, he just wanted to accompany Chen Shiwei for a stroll, but he ended up making such a big commotion. At that moment, he shook his head and lost his smile, saying, Elder Ancestor Mo, Mr. Mo, Shan, I didn't expect that I would actually startle you all. Venerable Chu has come to visit, how could we not show up to greet him? Old man Mo waved his hand and said. After he finished speaking, he looked at the aura on Chu Mo's body, and suddenly the pupils of his eyes shrank, then slightly revealed a touch of shock as he subconsciously asked, Venerable Chu has already successfully stepped into the 8 desolate venerable realm? Got away with it a couple days ago. Chu Mo said with a smile. He spoke very modestly, but in the ears of old ancestor Mo and Mo Yangon as well as the 3 of Mo Shanshan, it was like a thunderclap on a flat earth. Hiss. Old Ancestor Mo suddenly couldn't help but suck in a breath of cool air. You remembered that the last time the little leaf green sky mysterious realm opened, Chu Mo was still only at the Zongsha realm. How long has it been? Chu Mo had then blinked across the 4 directions Shin generals and never smoothly stepped into the 8 desolate exalted. This terrifying cultivation speed was simply appalling. More importantly, back when Chu Mo had still only just broken through to Jin General, he had already been able to decapitate 8 desolate exalted like Su Lang and the Su clan ancestor when he was at the Xian level rift. He even killed more than 10 enemies of the 10,000 beasts sect at the Zun level with his own strength. Back then, his strength was already the number 1 strongest in the Jinling Big Base. And now that Chu Mo had truly advanced to the 8 desolate realms, how powerful had he become? Can you kill the peak existence of the 8 wastelands Zunis, or can you match the King Realm powerhouses? He can't imagine. But that didn't stop old Ancestor Mo from feeling a lot of emotions in his heart. Maybe this is the real heavenly pride. He thought so. Just as old Ancestor Mo was shocked. Husband, you guys chat first, I'm going to wander elsewhere first. Just then, Chen Shiwei whispered, this is Mrs. Chu, right, and Venerable Chu is really a groom and daughter, a perfect match. Mrs. Chu wants to come to the Merchant Alliance to buy something? Old Ancestor Mo came back to his senses and asked with a smile. Chen Shi nodded slightly and said, come to purchase some resources needed for cultivation. Then coming to our Jade Merchant Alliance is the right thing to do, Shan Shan. You go and accompany Mrs. Chu around, no matter what Mrs. Chu has her eye on, our Merchant Alliance is always free. Old Ancestor Mo said cheerfully. Words. Chen Shi was slightly hesitant and couldn't help but look at Chu Mo, and only when she saw Chu Mo nod, did she smile sweetly, then thank you, Elder Ancestor Mo. Immediately, he followed Mo Shanshan and left the place. Venerable Chu, why don't we change places and sit down to sip some tea and discuss the Tao? Old Ancestor Mo asked, dare you not follow orders? Chamo laughed. So they left the place. The other side. Mo Shanshan, who was shopping with Chen Xiawei, couldn't help but turn around and look at Chu Mo, who was leaving with her own old ancestor. You remembered that when she had just gotten acquainted with Chu Mo, he was still just a tiny martial apprentice, not worth mentioning regardless of his strength background. She, on the other hand, was the eldest miss of the Jade Merchant Alliance, with extraordinary talent and top strength. At that time, she only thought that Chu Mo was a rather talented martial artist, and thus invited to become the guest secretary of Jade House. But she didn't expect it anyway. In the twinkling of an eye, Chu Mo has already grown to be the number 1 strongest person in the Jinling Great Base, and his future is even more unlimited, so even the old ancestor has to be careful in his hospitality, and even has the idea of making friends with him to this day. Can't I see your back anymore? She looked at Chu Mo, who was laughing and joking with her own old ancestor, and thought, so. What happened to you, Miss Mo? Mo? Chen Shiwei looked at Mo Shanshan, who was frozen in place, and asked with some curiosity. Nothing. Mo Shanshan collected the distractions in her mind. Just looking back, looking at the woman in front of him with a beautiful appearance and incomparable temperament, he still couldn't help but give birth to a touch of complexity in his heart. She sighed quietly in her heart and said, Chu. Lady, what do you want to buy, might as well tell me. In the middle of the quiet room, the 3 of them, Chu Mo and the Mo family ancestor as well as Mo Yangon, sat opposite each other, sipping tea and drinking tea while chatting idly. He recalled the Earth Cave caveman he had previously seen and thought that old man Mo was more experienced, so he inquired, but I wonder if old man Mo has heard of the Earth Cave caveman? Grotto caveman? Old ancestor Mo frowned and said with some surprise, I wonder where Venerable Chu learned about this. His words were a bit cautious, even with some hesitation. Seeing this, Chu Mo couldn't help but be moved in his heart. Just previously had seen in the canonical books, so there is some curiosity in the heart of Mo, old ancestor, is it possible to have an understanding of the Earth Cave caveman? Mo found a reason to excuse himself and then inquired. Understanding can't be talked about, it's only because my elder brother serves as an elder in one of the major forces in the Zhonghai super base, and he learned some secrets by chance and learned of the existence of the Earth Cave caveman, and thus had mentioned it to me as well. Old man Mo said. Please also ask elder ancestor Mo to explain. Mo immediately spoke. Words. Old ancestor Mo took a deep breath and did not directly begin his narration, but first asked Mo a question. Does Venerable Chu ever know that during the great change of heaven and earth, when the ferocious beasts invaded, how did my human race, initially, create the martial arts? At these words, Mo couldn't help but have some doubts in his heart. It's well known. In the year 2200 of the Blue Star era, many spatial cracks appeared in various parts of the globe, from which countless powerful and ferocious beasts emerged, and even a stream of mysterious substances. Mysterious ignorance is capable of destroying electronic devices, rendering many powerful strategic weapons ineffective, leaving humanity to rely on the most basic of weapons against the feral beasts. However, in the face of powerful beasts that were strong enough to burn mountains and boil the sea, human beings relying on ordinary powerhouses were simply unable to fight against them. That period was also the darkest time for mankind. The population plummeted to less than 1/10 in just a few years. Fortunately, some humans later discovered that they could absorb the mysterious martial artists traveling in the air, gradually transforming their bodies and mastering transcendent powers, plus there were scientists who continuously researched the matter, and only then did they finally integrate the martial arts. To this day, all of this past history has been recorded in textbooks, and almost every human race has known it since elementary school, which is considered common knowledge. But old man Mo suddenly asked about this. Could it be that there are still some secrets in this? Thinking of this, Mo couldn't help but feel a stirring in his heart. Chapter 179. To this day, it is invincible. Venerable Chu guessed correctly, there are indeed some secrets in this, and it does have a connection to the Earth Cave caveman. Looking at Mo's expression, old ancestor Mo seemed to know that Mo had guessed something and couldn't help but nod. He then continued, what is written in the textbooks is really good, but many things are glossed over. For example, my human race discovered that martial artists can absorb Yuan Qi and transform themselves to master transcendent power. But Venerable Chu himself has practiced it, and with your extraordinary talent, it should have taken you quite a few days to raise your cultivation to this realm as well. Then for ordinary humans, how many years will it take to have the strength to fight against ferocious beasts? Speaking of which, Mo old ancestor did not wait for Mo to reply, then replied to himself, the old man is also regarded as a top talent, 15 years old detected to have a cultivation physique and talent, 17 years old stepped into the realm of the martial artist, 20 years old into the martial artist, 26 years old into the realm of the sect master, 39 years old stepped into the four directions of the town generals, 106 years old, stepped into the realm of the eight wastelands. Venerable, to this day, the old man is already more than 140 years old. 140 years and stepping into the middle stage of the eight desolate exalted masters, even at this time when the development of martial arts is so prosperous, one is already considered a leader. And at the early stage of the great change of heaven and earth, the environment was much harsher than it is now, and the Yuan Qi wasn't as dense as it is now, so even if there were martial artists with amazing talent, if they wanted to grow strong enough for mankind to gain a place to live in this world, they would need to be at least an 8 wastelands venerable one or even a cave heavenly king realm. But how much time will it take to grow to this level? If we only relied on humans to grow on their own, I'm afraid that to this day, the human race would have already become extinct under the attack of the ferocious beasts. Hear this. Mo had already slightly understood something and said thoughtfully, it's the help of the Earth Cave caveman? Old man Mo nodded. After the great change of heaven and earth and the recovery of Yuan Qi, the Earth Cave cavemen awakened from the ground, and they grasped transcendent power, and it seems that they signed some contracts with human beings, so as to help the human race to resist the ferocious beasts and to build the survival bases. Just like the 10 super bases of my human race now. In fact, it is the first time that in the first place, these Earth Cave cavemen helped to build up the first batch of survival bases. But at that time it was said that there were hundreds of them, only that under the onslaught of the ferocious beasts, only these last 10 were eventually left and developed into the 10 super bases. Not only did the Earth Cave caveman help my human race build a survival base, he also assisted my human race in creating the path of martial arts, determined the realm divisions, and took out many heavenly treasures to help my human race's martial artists grow. Because of this, mankind was able to pass through that darkest period and once again have a place in this homeland that has become countless times larger and stranger than ever. At the end of his words, the Mo clan's old ancestor couldn't help but let out a long breath, his words filled with emotion. Listening to these words, Chu Mo couldn't help but come to a realization. Finally, I understand the origin of the grotto cavemen and the reason why they learned the human language. But soon, he thought of something and couldn't help but stare as he asked, why are the Earth Cave cavemen so eager to help us? At that time, the human race did not have any strength, and could only struggle to stay alive under the attacks of ferocious beasts. The Earth Cave caveman, however, held great strength, but volunteered to help humans build survival bases, and even helped the human race pioneer martial arts, and even took out heavenly treasures to help humans cultivate. It looks rather unrelenting. This is obviously somewhat unusual. After all, any living being is selfish. Even kinsmen can have second thoughts, let alone between humans and grotto cavemen. Anyone who is not of my kind understands that their hearts will be different. That I don't know. Facing Chu Mo's inquiry, the Mo family ancestor shook his head, then said, however, my elder brother told me that the relationship between the human race and the Earth Cave caveman is very delicate right now, and it seems that everyone is secretive about it, both close and somewhat distant, and anyway, the relationship is very complicated, that's all. The words are here. He glanced at Chu Mo and said, if Venerable Chu ever encounters the Earth Cave caveman, it would be best to keep it quiet so as not to get involved in any whirlpool for no reason. What Elder Mo said. Chu Mo knew that these were pertinent words, so he discreetly nodded his head. Subsequently, the two then coincidentally didn't say anything more about this matter, but instead diverted the topic to cultivation. The three of them were all 8 desolate exalted masters, specializing in different paths, and all of them benefited greatly from some exchanges. Late afternoon. Chen Shiwei and Mo Shanshan are back, so Chu Mo and Chen Shiwei said their goodbyes together and left the Jade Merchant Alliance. Back to the villa. Chen Shiwei had harvested quite a few cultivation resources, so after chatting with Chu Mo for a few moments, he hurriedly went into seclusion. As for Chu Mo, he was in a quiet room. The conversation with old ancestor Mo kept coming back to his mind. Have to say, old ancestor Mo's words made Chu Mo understand a lot more about the Earth Cave caveman, but what came from this was the emergence of more doubts. But these things were just as old man Wamo had said. It's too involved. It was better not to get involved until you had enough strength and status, lest you accidentally make enemies. Just don't think about these things for a while. When the strength rises later, all these seemingly taboo things at the moment will no longer be a problem. Chumo thought darkly. The next day, Chuemo woke up from his cultivation, experiencing that all of his strength had been raised to its peak state, so he physically came to midair in an instant. After recognizing the direction, he turned into a stream of light and flew away, quickly moving away from the Jinling large base. This time, he had come out with the intention of making a trip to the Sea of Purple Bamboo Forest to figure out the chances underneath the heavenly starblade bamboo. In the beginning, he could only escape and leave when facing that guardian beast, the bloodthirsty mad crocodile, due to his lack of strength. Now that his cultivation had been promoted to 8 desolate venerable, his fleshly body power alone had reached 850,000 elephant power, and under the 300-fold increase after breaking the fleshly body extreme realm, his strength was comparable to the peak of the cave heavenly king realm. Although it was only the peak of the cave heavenly king realm without any special talent. However, it was expected that it was no longer a problem to deal with that 7th-level ferocious beast. Arriving at the realm of the 8 desolate exalted one, Chumo's flying speed had also grown tremendously. It only took less than an hour to arrive at the sea of purple bamboo forest. Standing in the middle of the sky, he raised his eyes and looked down. Revisit this place again. It could still be seen that the huge sea of forest, which originally covered an area of tens of thousands of kilometers, had been destroyed by the bloodthirsty berserk crocodile for the most part, in addition to the other landscapes and terrains, which had been greatly altered, and had not recovered so far. Anyone who sees this scene. I'm afraid that in my heart, I can't help but marvel at the fearsomeness of a level 7 fierce beast. It was the same with Chummer in the beginning. Just for today. He came again under very different circumstances. Landing his form, Chumo searched all the way. Soon enough, this level 7 bloodthirsty berserker crocodile was found in that canyon near the heavenly star blade bamboo. At this time it is sleeping. And by its side there were dozens of crocodiles converging once again, but their cultivation levels were mostly only just 2nd and 3rd grade, with the highest being no more than 4th grade. The batch of 4th and 5th level crocodile ferocious beasts in the beginning all seemed to have fallen under his violent anger. This time Chumo did not hide his body. Thus when he arrived, the aura emanating from his body quickly made the bloodthirsty berserker crocodile notice it. After seeing Chumo, it first froze, and then steeply sensed that the aura emanating from Chumo's body seemed to be the person who had stolen its treasures in the first place. This piece of astral blade bamboo, it had been guarding for decades. As a result, because of a careless move, it was stolen by this tiny mole cricket, which made it furious inside. So much so that it later wreaked havoc on this great land for a long time, destroying tens of thousands of miles in every direction, and as a result, it did not find that too abominable aura nowadays. It didn't expect this person to actually dare to come. Shasta. The bloodthirsty berserk crocodile then became completely furious. The eyes that were the size of a millstone were instantly reddened, staring at Chumo with a deadly stare, which contained infinite tyranny, seemingly saying, "You're dead." Roar. A roar. Huge shockwaves directly swept out, and even the air shook as a result. Wherever the sound waves passed through, the earth was lifted up, and countless broken rocks and grasses made plopping sounds as they exploded. It could be seen just how great the power contained was. And that, as yet, is just the fallout. As the main target, Chumo was the first to bear the brunt of the most terrifying sound wave attack. In the face of such prowess. If before that, Chumo would have had to flee immediately, but at the moment he didn't care. Mindfulness. A circle of earth-colored barrier then surfaced around the body. This was an ability that was mastered after the earth attribute talent was enlightened into an axiom. It can form an earth attribute shield outside of the body, and as long as it stands on the earth, it can constantly transfer the power it endures to the earth, making the damage it suffers greatly diminished. Boom! The shockwave blasted into the shield. Only to see that the terrifying sound wave was suddenly weakened by the vast majority. And although the remaining power was still powerful and directly shattered the shield, when it finally landed on Chumo, it had allowed him to withstand it peacefully. Sure enough. Stepping into the 8 desolate exalted realm with the shocking method has indeed increased my fleshly body's defense greatly. Feeling his body just vaguely transmitted a huge force, causing the chi and blood in his body to stir with it. Before calming down, Chumo couldn't help but have a smile appear on his face. The Qi-Yun Meridian Impact Method, with the vibration of Qi and Blood Yuan power, caused the 8 strange meridians and 12 proper meridians to resonate, cleansing his body, allowing his physical body's strength, defense, and speed to increase greatly after he stepped into the 8 desolate realms. Plus his own accumulation and heritage. So much so that just after stepping into the 8 desolate exalted realm, he possessed at least 10 times the physical qualities of an ordinary exalted. Such a strong accumulation, coupled with the increase in defense brought about by the transcendent great earth attribute talent, made him strong enough to resist the full force of a king-level ferocious beast. And this? It stands for he was already invincible. Chapter 180, Slaying Bloodthirsty Frenzied Crocodile, Gathering Technique Evolution? The test is over. Then it's time to talk about me next. Among the murmurs. Chumo's body flashed steeply, turning into a residual shadow as he rushed towards the bloodthirsty berserk crocodile. Ground. The bloodthirsty berserk crocodile looked at Chumo, who was still unharmed under his roar, and could not help but show a confused look within a pair of bloodthirsty eyes. It seems to be completely unintelligible. How was it that this mole cricket in front of him was able to resist his full force strike without dying outright? But it was too late to think much about it. It was because Chumo had already swiftly arrived in front of this bloodthirsty berserker crocodile, Chop. The chi and blood in his body stirred crazily, and his majestic yuan power erupted like a volcano. Indestructible thunder body power increase. The supreme blade body operated, and the 365 blade orifices up and down the circumference vibrated in unison. 10% great perfection blade intent stirred out. Metallic Upanishad enhancement. The talent of a door was stirred up with a bang, causing Chumo's strength to reach its peak in an instant, followed by a clang sound as the autumn killing blade was unsheathed blatantly, and a terrifying blade chi swept out instantly, forming a blade domain of killing chi that surged with a shocking aura in the region of dozens of miles around him. Countless blade chi intertwined around and entwined with each other, cutting a tiny black crack into the void. A shocking killing aura filled the air. It landed on the body of the bloodthirsty berserker crocodile, emitting the sound of pft pft. Numerous subtle wounds appeared on its body with it. This was caused by the blade filaments that permeated the area in which Chumo had cast his blade domain. Just the aura that was naturally emitted was already able to break through the bloodthirsty berserk crocodile's defense. If Chumo truly unleashed this blade, what kind of terrifying power would it be? Answers. Instant reveal. Only to see that in this blade domain, under the infinite blade intent enhancement, Chumo slashed out with a single blade, and the entire heaven and earth seemed to dim in an instant. I don't know when. The sun disappeared into thin air and dark clouds covered the great day. There was only a crimson blade, as if it had taken over the creation of heaven and earth. The sun and the moon were shining brightly, and as soon as it appeared, it stretched out across heaven and earth, and it was filled with a horrifyingly sharp aura, and it seemed as if even the firmament of the heavens and the universe could be chopped in half with a single slash boom. This blade that had stunned heaven and earth finally landed on the bloodthirsty berserker crocodile's body. Only a poof was heard. A large stream of blood flew. A hideous and horrifyingly huge wound appeared steeply on the back of the bloodthirsty berserk crocodile. Even the bones were broken, countless blood spurted out from it, spilling down as if it was raining. Roar. Under the pain, the bloodthirsty berserk crocodile immediately let out a miserable scream, shaking the earth for hundreds of miles around, and countless earth and rocks exploded. Its eyes were completely red, and a hideous and tyrannical aura instantly filled its brain. The bloodthirsty berserk crocodile, completely enraged. It hadn't expected at all that it would be injured by a tiny mole cricket, and even caused such a large wound that even its bones were broken, which was a lifelong shame for it. Kill. 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 What little sanity remained allowed him to shout out these words filled with murderous intent and bloodshed. It then directly raised its thick forelimbs and directly blasted its suppression towards Chumo. Boom. The void trembled, the earth was sunken, and the canyon crumbled. And Chumo, who was first among them, even felt a terrifying force squeezing the space and invading towards him. Such a close distance made it too late for Chumo to dodge. Even if it was an instantaneous transfer, it would take the blink of an eye to perform it, which was already enough for a rank 7 ferocious beast to drop its forelimbs. It's totally too late in the day. Therefore, Chumo also gave up dodging and backhanded another slash, while simultaneously operating his earth attribute Upanishad and talent. Boom. The terrifying force directly slapped Chumo's body away, and the shield that surrounded his body shattered with a click, and his body even had some cracks. However, while still in midair, Chu Mo had already operated his wood attribute talent and recovered all of his injuries. What power! Chu Mo landed on the ground, barely calming the agitated Qi and Yuan power in his body, and secretly said in shock. This bloodthirsty berserker crocodile's body is too huge and its power is too terrifying. It definitely has some sort of talent that can add to its power. With my power today, I'm afraid I won't be able to go toe-to-toe with him even under the 300 times enhancement. Looks like we'll just have to think of some other method. Between the turning of the mind. This bloodthirsty berserker crocodile was already charging over once again. Don't look at its huge body, but its speed was extremely swift, a distance of tens of miles, almost in the blink of an eye, it had arrived. It then raised its front limbs, full of tyrannical intent towards smashing down. Seeing that Chu Mo was about to be suppressed by it with a boom. Just this instant. Chu Mo immediately operated the Great Diffusion Divine Light, and in the Violet Mansion, the Yuanshan violently opened its eyes, and the Yuanshan golden wheel that was solidified behind it instantly transformed into a divine light and shot out. The golden light broke through the air in a flash. It directly drilled into the bloodthirsty berserker crocodile's mind, and then swept violently at its soul. Wow! A piece of his soul shattered straight away. This intense pain originating from the depths of the soul directly made the body of the bloodthirsty berserk crocodile subconsciously spasm, so much so that the kick did not even fall, but instead, the entire body directly flopped to the ground, constantly rolling on the ground and wailing ow. Miserable roars kept coming. The soul is different from the rest. It is the most vital component of any living being. For king-level ferocious beasts and martial artists, as long as they didn't receive fatal injuries, even if they were physically crippled, they could regenerate their limbs and the pain would be bearable. But once the soul is damaged, it is a pain that is more intense than the pain that originates from the bone marrow. And it's hard to repair the damage to your soul. Not to mention. At this moment, this bloodthirsty berserk crocodile, still under the sweep of Chu Mo's Great Diffusion Divine Light, a piece of it was directly shattered, which was tantamount to missing a piece of its soul. How much damage is really done can be imagined. And that is just the beginning. Great Diffusion Divine Light. Great Diffusion Divine Light. Great Diffusion Divine Light. Chu Mo continuously executed the Great Diffusion Divine Light, a golden divine light breaking through the void and continuously drilling into the bloodthirsty berserker crocodile's mind, attacking its startled soul. Every time it falls, a piece of its soul is missing. A few short breaths. Chu Mo had already cast the Great Diffusion Divine Light 7 or 8 times, and the bloodthirsty berserk crocodile's soul was even missing a full third of it. The bloodthirsty mad crocodile at this moment. The spiritual intelligence that it was originally born with has now disappeared with the lack of soul, completely turning into a muddled, vicious beast with only an instinctive sense of killing. Take him while he's sick. Seeing the situation, Chu Mo's eyes stared, then he executed his blade technique and continuously slashed towards the bloodthirsty berserk crocodile's body. Cut after cut, cut after cut. Along with the fall of the long blade, Chu Mo also released the Great Diffusion Divine Light once in a while, annihilating its soul. One time. One could only hear the bloodthirsty crocodile's miserable screams, continuously resounding on this land, one after another in an endless stream. This pain from the soul to the flesh made it want to pass out from the pain, but it was unable to pass out at all because of the constant stimulation that its soul was suffering, and thus it felt it very clearly. No doubt about it. It's an extremely horrible torture. A few moments later, its hissing had fallen much lower and it became moribund. Another moment passed. Along with Chu Mo's blade falling, the crimson blade chi that was like a curtain covering the sky came out across the sky and blasted down on the bloodthirsty berserk crocodile's neck. Only a poof was heard. A head instantly rolled off the huge body and fell into the dust. Large streams of blood flew out, spilling down like blood rain. The bloodthirsty crocodile. Finally, he died. Phew. Seeing that he had finally decapitated the bloodthirsty berserker crocodile, Chu Mo finally couldn't help but let out a long breath of relief before relaxing. It's really worthy of being a rank 7 king beast. It's really not very easy to cut him down. Chumo wiped the sweat from his forehead and murmured. Although he was already invincible and even had the great diffusion divine light to restrain the bloodthirsty berserk crocodile. However, for a 7th level ferocious beast, the level of life had become very different, and it was almost as if it had received an all-around promotion. Therefore, even though the soul of the bloodthirsty berserker crocodile had already been annihilated by him for the most part, it still took quite a bit of effort to decapitate it. But good thing all this hard work was worth it. Chumo returned to his senses and looked at the terrifying 7th level king beast in front of him, and a smile appeared on his face. Next. Then it was time for the harvest. A class 7 fierce beast, I wonder what kind of surprise it can give me again? When Chumo had secretly collected the 10,000 beasts sect master, who was also a king realm powerhouse, it had given him a great harvest. And this 7th level king beast in front of him that was comparable to the king realm naturally caused Chumo's heart to look forward to it. He gazed up and was about to collect. However, this look but let Chumo was first stunned, and then the pupils steeply and sharply contracted. The faces could not help but reveal a touch of shock. Target, bloodthirsty crocodile, level 7 king beast. Bloodline, transcendent level. Talent, top berserker talent. Capturable. Is collection taking place? What the hell is going on here? Looking at the scene in front of him, Chumo's face revealed a look of shock. The information presented in front of him was completely different from what it had been before. To know. Before that. It can only see information about the other side species and whether or not it can be captured. But today. Instead, a more believable message emerged. Is it just in the bodies of level 7 ferocious beasts that such changes appear, or do all ferocious beasts have such changes? Chumo couldn't help but have such doubts floating in his mind. He then swept his gaze around. He happened to see a few level 3 crocodile beasts not far away that had died because they were affected by his fight with the bloodthirsty berserker crocodile, so he walked nearby and fixed his gaze on a crocodile. Target, level 3 beast, the ironback crocodile. Bloodline, none. Talent, inferior earth attribute talent. Capturable. Is collection taking place? Chumo then looked at several other crocodiles one after another, and realized that the information they were displaying in front of him had all become more detailed. This. Murphy is. My gathering technique has evolved?